Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Man Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program from the 1964 Washington Senators. I welcome in pitcher Don Loun. Don, great to have you on. How you been?
Hey, Brian, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, Don. Now, just to remind everyone, Don's claim to fame in baseball came after his remarkable Major League debut, September 1964, when he shut out the Boston Red Sox at D.C., and, we'll touch upon that. But, Don, I want to begin amateur years. Now, you originally played outfielder and first baseman, correct? And then occasionally you pitched. Was that how you began?
It's pretty much the way things went. I was an outfielder and learned to play first base after being beaten up by ground balls, and learned it and loved it. And then one of our guys got sick and heat stroke, and I started to pitch, and that was the closest one to the mound, as I like to remember. So, hey, you're playing first base, and go on over and pitch. So that's when it began, and it was a big time for me.
Now, just reading your biography, I'm going back to 1960. I believe you were playing for the Tri-County League, and there was a game in which you struck out 18 batters, and word started getting around, especially to the Baltimore Orioles, right? Now, you tried out for the Baltimore Orioles at that time. How was that experience like?
Well, it was a surprise because no sooner did I walk in the house than there was a telegram there about meeting with the Orioles, and also later on the Phillies, and of course Washington was the third team. But it was quite exciting. I must say, I had no idea that would happen. I didn't know about how many I'd struck out. I didn't think about it, and I just tried to get people out, and that's the way it was. And it was hot that day. It was 90 plus, and my old friend just gave me the ball about the second, going in maybe the third inning. I think I got 6 2/3 innings in, and was able to strike out 18, which I didn't. I never had any high school experience in pitching. I was on again, and it just seemed like it was a separation for me. I wanted to play. I loved to play when I started to learn, so that was what I ended up concentrating on and breaking in with some of the old guys that were playing in Frederick County, Maryland at that time.
And a former big leaguer, and later on he was the GM of the Seattle Mariners, Hal Keller. Now he was in your circle and played an instrumental part in your early career. Is that fair to say, Hal Keller?
Yeah, that's the guy that talked to his brother Charlie Keller, out of the Frederick, Maryland, and Middletown, Maryland. There, all the Kellers grew up in the valley in Middletown, and Charlie, of course, had 13 years with the Yankees in the big leagues. So he was the guy to go see, and things got quiet after I struck out 18. Then I wanted to see, I didn't want to lose the opportunity, so the manager at the Tri-County League says, let's go see Mr. Keller. And I said, okay. And he called, and we all met, and he gave me some great advice before I ever signed. And then the next day, Hal, his brother, whom had been working with I believe the Twins in the Midwest here in the minor leagues called and wanted to meet and said, whatever you do, don't sign. Philadelphia was looking at me at that time, as was the Orioles. So at that time, things kind of was more like on the back of a mule because things were moving kind of slow. Back in those days, of course, the owners had the upper hand, and that was the deal.
And we're talking with Don Loun, a pitcher for the 1964 Washington Senators. He's on the telephone line. And, Don, I'm reading an old a magazine from 1961. It's a sports magazine, and it states that you broke into pro baseball as a relief pitcher in Pensacola, and then you converted to a full-time pitcher. How did that transition happen?
Well, I think it happened because Al Keller and the Washington club was short on pitching. And we were in spring training, and there were 36 of us that were trying to make the Pensacola Senators that year in the Alabama-Florida League, which only lasted 2 years after that. But in any case, that was the goal. Oh, okay. Well, he throws hard. Let's see if he can pitch. Well, the next thing I know, that was what I was doing. And as soon as I got an opportunity, I watched the guys who were in the Twin organization out of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and I watched those guys that came up from South America, and they had a jump on everyone over there. We had a pile of sand we played on. They played in the stadium. But in any case, I watched, and I tried to learn what it was like to rotate and to do what you needed to do. And it was like a sponge. I mean, I just went after it and was very fortunate. I got up at about 2:30 that morning when they cut the club, and under Archie Wilson, who was a Canadian, but he played in Toronto, came down the stairs at my surprise about 3 o'clock, and I'm sitting there in a raincoat and nervous as a cat, and he looks at me and he says, "Don't worry, Lefty, you're going." And that was, God, it was dark, but it was daylight for me. It was the beginning of my career.
Man, and so from 61 till about 64, you shot through all three levels of the minor leagues, and then I believe that when the AAA season ended, September of 64, you were promoted to the Senators. Now, question: how was playing for Gil Hodges, who was the manager of the Senators at that time?
Well, I tell you what, I wasn't there long enough to really get a strong opinion of Gil. I thought that I'd hear more about him. Claude Osteen and I roomed together after that game when we went on the road, and I just never got the opportunity to know what the team would be sitting down and he would be addressing us. He was always in his office, it seemed, and I think that's the way the old-timers treated the rookies. And I just took it all for granted. Okay, this is the way it is. He's the manager, I'm the player. I do what he wants me to do when he wants me to do it. And I remember coming down the steps to the dugout, and he was at the bottom of the steps this particular night when we were back home from Detroit, and he said, "You're going to be starting Thursday," and so I had just thrown batting practice and felt like a young bull, I guess, because I took 10 days off, hadn't pitched, but in any case, that was fine. I knew what I needed to do and how I needed to do it, and that's what I did. Went out, worked out, I never remembered touching the ground so much, but it was just the beginning of getting ready to pitch against the Red Sox.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, such a name like Gil Hodges, former Brooklyn Dodger player, a Brooklyn icon. Just being around his presence, I can imagine I would be in awe. But now, were you in awe, or was he just a regular ball player to you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when you get paid to play, I tried to draw a line about what the differences were. And really, you get paid to do the job, and if you're going to succeed, you got to do it. If you got to cover first base, you ought to do it, Mr. Cole. And that's your job to do it. And that was the way I took it. I felt like each hitter up there, I didn't care who they were. What I cared was how fast they ran. And were they always making contact? Did they strike out? Well, that's something I didn't have time to learn in the big leagues, but I tried to learn our lineups. And when I pitched against people, once you learn how to pitch and to throw strikes, you better be on your game. And I just felt like every time I walked out there, I had a chance to win. And I never thought that I couldn't. I always felt like this is my day, and I did the best I could. Now, I had off days like everyone else, but they weren't many, and I think the stats would show that I wasn't a guy that got beat around. I never really gave up a lot of runs. A whole career I never did. My first full win in the minors was a shutout, and that's when a guy almost ruined my career by hitting me in the jaw with a batting practice ball the first time he had thrown batting practice, and I got up and spit my teeth out and took my swings and went in on the training table, which they insisted on examining me. But anyway, I went out and shut them out. I pitched 7 shutout innings then, and that was what was in the Alabama-Florida League. And I felt pretty angry about the whole thing. So when they almost hit me in the shoulder with the first line drive, that was the end of that one. Keep the bats in the rack, fellas. That's where they're going to stay. So anyway, that's an attitude that I kept. The 4th inning, if you ain't got me, you ain't getting me. So that was the way it was.
Man, and you should be titled the shutout man because your major league debut, remarkably, you shut out the Boston Red Sox. Now, I got to ask you, what were you, if you recall, I know it's a while ago, did you eat your Wheaties that morning? What did you do differently that morning, if you remember?
Well, Brian, I don't remember a lot of the pregame activity. I just knew I had a job to do. I was a pitcher today, and at that time I was staying in a shared hotel room in Huntington Towers, let me get that straight, there in Alexandria with Brinkman and Scourin, and I don't remember the rest. But anyway, I just did things normal. We had breakfast. We, go to the ballpark. I don't know if we got in there at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I don't know when the time was, but all I know is when I get my uniform on and I'm out there loosening up, I notice a big difference in some of the guys today. But I just did things that I had always done for 4 straight years, and just got myself ready, and that was it. It wasn't nervous. My mother was really worried about me. She thought I would be really nervous, and I said, Mom, I just want to get paid to do my job. That's what it is. So anyway, I'm sure there were butterflies or things were flying around a little bit, but I don't recall any any of that. When Mantilla started off with a double, I said, he's in scoring position. I got to keep him there. That was my ball back to me. I knew what I had to do with it. And that's where he stayed, and we went in and tried to get a hold of a fellow named Charlton, and he pitched a whale of a game. And but as far as Hodges and any of the exchange, there was nothing that we had about hitters on the Red Sox club. And I had a terrific catcher. Kenny Retzer was my catcher, and he and I came through the AAA Sparky Anderson regime there in the International League. We worked great together. I got us out of one game, but I had us in every game I pitched. And one game I took a little lump or two by the fourth inning, and then that changed. But the ERA stayed down, the runs stayed down. I took one hitter at a time, and that was the way we approached it. I remember great when they named Carl Yastrzemski. They called him out, as they do most everyone, and I was familiar with that name, and I knew you don't make mistakes here. If you make mistakes, you're going to pay, and a run's going to score. And I think he was third in the lineup, and I just went after him like I go everyone else, and I thought he's a guy. He's hitting third. He must make contact. So I really had the bull in my neck, as they used to say, and I was fortunate enough to have my fastball sink, and it really made the difference. And it was my day there. And later on, when we go to Boston, he almost hits one out in the right field. Kirkland caught it on the warning track, staggered a little bit, fell against the fence. I said, is he trying to drop that ball out of the ball? But in any case, I knew better because you never thought of anything. But he was scuffling around, made the catch, and like I said, Carl just missed that one. And if he remembers and I remember, I hope he does, because I had great respect for him and his achievements, as I did any of the guys that I played with. I was never a smart, I'm going to say, I just did my job, and I had the luck to play and be on the field with Bob Feller, and we'll quote next time, maybe we'll have time, I'll quote a joke that I made just off the cuff and not even thinking. But anyway, it was harmless, and he made sure that I knew that it was, and I had great friends in the ball games that I played. And so that I think the only guy that I probably took head-to-head with was Tony Camigliero, and he just seemed to be a little more cocky than a lot of the other guys, but I remember him in St. Petersburg, and I'll never forget him in my ball games that I pitched against the Red Sox. And I think he got one hit. He made the bad mistake of standing up in a double play, got knocked out cold by Eddie Brinkman. But he healed, and everything worked out for him, and he was there, and I was in the minors.
I mean, Don, this is, like I said, it's a remarkable way to start your major league career. And just to paint the little picture of that day, I'm looking at the scorecard. This was Don Lown's major league debut, September 23, 64, tossing a 5-hit shutout for the Senators, who defeated the Red Sox 1-0 at D.C. Now, it had from what I'm looking at this report, it had a tiny crowd of close to 1,500 people. And, you know, I believe you gave up a hit to early on, and then you fanned Carl Yastrzemski, and then you settled down. You had your off-speed pitch, and they couldn't touch you after that.
Well, I like I said, I was making my pitches. I had my catcher working with me. We worked as a team. I mean, he set up. He needed to change up. He got it. The hitters didn't know it was coming, and he just knew how to set you up. And I give him a lot of credit. The man's no longer here with us, but I got to see him down here before he passed away, and then he was down in Arizona. And it's just a good thing when you've got that kind of work, effort coming from him and coming from me, and we put it together. And I'm going to brag a little bit more on that outing. I think I threw 92 pitches in 2 hours and 10 minutes, and that was fast enough, I thought. I don't think anybody got past second base, and that was the facts that came out of that, and all of that 60 years ago, or longer, of course. Now, I guess.
Now, and Don, I want to get this in. Let's talk a little bit about your self-published book. Talk a little bit about that, the title, and what the readers can look forward to reading if they are able to get a copy of this book.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. That book was written. It took me just a few years, like 11, I think, 10, 11, but I got on and off of it. I wrote stuff down that I needed to write. I found my notes all over the place. I finally got them organized to a point. And coming off of not learning the computer completely, but being able to, with my Army training, I had a ability to type, and that wasn't getting me through. So the phone really helped me when I started to voice record, and that made the difference. That got me through the book, and I tried to keep it in a good read. I had help from my family, and that's who I made the book for. And God, everybody was involved. My daughter and my wife edited the book, and my son-in-law made the cover back in 23 in early January. It was beautifully done. I just can't give them enough credit. And I got the book done. I think it's less than 300 pages, or right around 300. And I hope everyone gets an opportunity to look it up.
And the title of the book, it's called Major League Shutout Debut, A Look Back After 60 Years. And this is really a great account, a record history of your early life in Frederick County and rise to the big leagues. So it took you a while to get this work put together, huh?
Well, it did, and you don't know where you're going to start, but you know that where you did start was on the farm. I was with my grandfather and my uncle. Worked probably 3 or 4 years in the summer at the farm, but it was a farmette that they would call now. It was a modest 15 acres. We did big gardening and made sure we ate good in the winter. We butchered 4 hogs every year. I was proud of all of that. My brother wasn't as attentive as I was in those years. But he was 3 years older and had I thought, a political career ahead of him by maybe being a county sheriff. But in any case, that was the beginning of my life, and I thought people should know what took place and how it took place. And a lot of that we also lost later on. But we lost a new house that we built, and it was not a good time for us in the mid-'60s. But pitching selection, I don't know about how that came around, but what they read in my book is basically for left-handers. I mean, I never had a book or people talk about what left-handers did except be wilder than a killdeer. So I felt like that's who I wanted to write it about, and I should have put more emphasis on the left-handers, because if we get balance, and you guys got it coming in the Red Sox, I think you got a guy named Chapman. You want to see a guy balanced? There's a guy that's really balanced. He doesn't worry about the runners. He's got a 106-mile-an-hour fastball, and he's going to do you a job. I don't know how hard he throws now, but you've got a Santa ball, I believe, coming from the Angels. You guys are going to be looking good. He looks like he could hunt bear with a switch, and I hope all that comes together for the Red Sox fans, because they're some of the greatest fans that I ever played around, and I played in the New England area and liked it out of York, Pennsylvania. So they're great people up there. They know their baseball, and I hope they get a chance to take a few minutes out. I get a little feedback. It's a good, easy read.
And Don, they're telling me I have 1 minute left. So if people are interested in buying this book, where can they search? Can they go on to Amazon?
Yes, they can, Brian. That's right where to go. That's who we worked with at the recommendation of the designer, and we'll be trying to get out more and more when we get back to the East Coast. I've got a few things lined up out here. But yes, Amazon and Major League Alumni, or they also have it. If there's any members, I think they're up to 20,000 members now. And I'm thrilled that I was in the ground floor of developing that Major League Alumni Association. And I hope that all of that comes together. So the fans, they are the ones that look at the $18 million for a 2-year contract. That's it.
But what I'm going to do, Don, I unfortunately I have to get going, but I really appreciate your time. Happy holidays to you and your family. The book is called Major League Shutout Debut: A Look Back After 60 Years. Don Loun, 1964 Washington Senators. Don, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
I look forward to hearing from you, Brian. Thank you so much for all your help and all the folks back home.
Until next week, happy collecting to all.